Your father has no place in an upscale apartment. With these words, my mother-in-law placed my disabled father's wheelchair, stroller, and belongings on the stairwell. My husband didn't dare to object. When I got home, I didn't shout. I just made one phone call, and within an hour, a man appeared at the door, whose presence made my mother-in-law collapse to the floor. Ashley ran her hand over the smooth, cool surface of the new kitchen table and smiled. She couldn't believe it. After so many years of moving from one rental to another, after endless saving and working 2 jobs, she finally had a home of her own. The 2-room apartment in the new residential complex Emerald City smelled of fresh paint, laminate, and happiness. From the panoramic window on the 12th floor, there was a view of the park under construction. Ironically, her company had won the tender for its landscaping. It was her project, her brainchild. And now she could watch it come to life right from her own window. Everything aligned perfectly, forming the ideal picture she had long dreamed of. A quiet squeak of wheels came from the adjacent room. Ashley immediately went there. In the doorway stood her father, John, in his wheelchair. His face, usually stern and strong-willed, now softened with a light, slightly bewildered smile. "Well, settling in, Commander?" Ashley asked, adjusting the blanket on his lap. "I'm trying, daughter." His voice had grown quieter after the stroke but had not lost its firmness. "It feels strange spacious." John had been discharged from the rehabilitation center just a week ago. Ashley, without a second thought, took him in. Her mother hadn't done it 5 years ago, and her father had been left completely alone in their old 3-room apartment across Washington. After the stroke, he needed constant care, and Ashley couldn't allow her father, a retired colonel, a strong and proud man, to end up in a nursing home. Besides, she owed him not just daughterly love. He had made this apartment possible. When the mortgage was in question, the banks refused to approve the required sum. Then her father, without a word, sold his collection of award-winning firearms, added all his savings, and contributed 3 million rubles as a down payment. To protect both himself and her, he insisted on becoming an official co-borrower. "It's safer this way, daughter," he had said. "You'll feel secure, and I'll know you have a roof over your head, no matter what happens." They had agreed to keep this detail, his official co-owner status, secret. Even Patrick, her husband, was told that her father had simply helped financially. She didn't want it to become a topic for conversation or, worse, for claims. "Dad, are you comfortable? Should I move the chair differently?" "All good, don't fuss. The main thing is that you're here." Ashley squeezed his warm, dry hand. The front door slammed, and Patrick appeared in the hallway, coming home earlier than usual, carrying a bag of groceries. "Hi, loves. John, how are you?" His voice was cheerful, but his eyes flickered with worry. "All good. Exploring new territories," her father joked. Patrick set the bag down and approached Ashley, quickly giving her a peck on the cheek. "Mom called. She said, I'll be there in an hour. Wants to see the new place, help out." Ashley felt a slight tension rise inside her. Gloria, her mother-in-law, and the word help in the same sentence always made her tremble. Gloria's help usually meant total control, unsolicited advice, and criticism of everything Ashley did. "I thought we'd invite her over on the weekend, after we've fully unpacked," she said cautiously. "Well, you know, Mom," Patrick shrugged apologetically. "She can't wait. She's worried about us," she said. "We'll bring her signature cabbage pie." He tried to smile, but it was forced. Ashley knew that smile. It appeared whenever he had to navigate between her and his mother. He loved Ashley, she had no doubt about that. But his mother, Gloria, was his unchallenged authority, a rock, whose opinion he valued above all else. The next hour passed in a flurry. Ashley quickly set the table, trying to create a festive atmosphere. Patrick nervously moved from room to room, adjusting couch pillows, checking if the bathroom was clean. John silently observed them from his chair, his perceptive gaze reflecting concern. He had studied people too well over years of service not to notice this tension. Exactly at 7 p.m., there was a sharp, demanding knock at the door. "I'll get it," Patrick exclaimed, rushing to the hallway. Ashley took a deep breath, mentally preparing for the encounter. She didn't yet know that this evening would mark the beginning of the end of her peaceful life. She only felt a cold draft of anxiety seep into their new, still unsettled apartment, foreshadowing a storm. Gloria entered the apartment not as a guest but as an inspector arriving for a sudden inspection. Tall, full-figured, with hair dyed a striking copper color and styled elaborately, she surveyed everything with the eye of a mistress. Her tightly pressed lips, lined with bright lipstick, curved into something resembling a smile as she handed Ashley a foil-wrapped pie. "Here, take it, daughter-in-law. At least my boy will get some proper food instead of living on semi-prepared meals." "Hello, Gloria." "Thank you," Ashley said, taking the still warm package, trying not to react to the jab. "Come in, we're just about to have dinner." Ignoring the invitation, her mother-in-law walked into the living room connected to the kitchen. Her gaze skimmed over the walls, furniture, and windows, and Ashley could physically feel every item in her new home being silently, yet critically, assessed. Patrick scurried nearby, peering at his mother with a fawning expression. "So, Mom, what do you think? Like it?" "Ashley and I worked hard." "It shows that you tried," Gloria said, running her finger along the back of the new sofa. "But the color is kind of mouse-like, impractical. One spill and it's ruined. You should have gotten something darker, checkered. And why is the sofa against this wall? It eats up all the space. It should be by the window, with the TV opposite." She was speaking to Patrick, not Ashley, as if the daughter-in-law weren't even there. Then her gaze fell on the wheelchair in which John was sitting. She froze for a moment, her face twisting into a look of disgust she quickly masked with a sympathetic smile. "Oh, John, you're here too. Hello. How's your health?" "Thank you, Gloria," slowly but surely, her father replied calmly, looking at her with an unwavering gaze. "Yeah, I can see it's slowly but surely," the mother-in-law sighed, surveying the room. "It must be cramped for the three of you. A two-room apartment isn't exactly a palace. How do you all fit in here?" Ashley felt her cheeks flush. That wasn't a question, it was a statement. A statement that her father was out of place here. "We're not complaining," she intervened, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's plenty of room for everyone." Well. Gloria drawled meaningfully, sitting at the table in the seat Patrick hastily pulled out for her. "The main thing is that my boy is comfortable. After work, he should relax, not trip over extra objects." She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood that the extra objects referred to her father's chair and wheelchair. Patrick cleared his throat awkwardly and quickly changed the topic, pouring wine into glasses. Dinner proceeded in a tense atmosphere. Gloria continued inspecting the apartment, now tasting everything. "The potatoes are undersalted," she declared after tasting Ashley's mashed potatoes. "And why so much mayonnaise in the salad? Pure cholesterol. Patrick, you shouldn't eat this. You're prone to gaining weight, it runs in our family." Ashley ate in silence, staring at her plate. She recalled how, years ago, At the very beginning of her relationship with Patrick, she had tried to argue with her mother-in-law, defending her culinary and household principles. It always ended the same way. Gloria would roll her eyes, clutch her chest, and declare that this girl wanted to drive her to an early grave. Patrick would immediately rush to calm his mother, then ask Ashley to be gentle and not argue with her elders. Over time, Ashley realized it was easier to remain silent. The energy spent on these pointless battles was more valuable to her. After dinner, as Ashley began clearing the dishes, Gloria followed her into the kitchen. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her daughter-in-law load the dishwasher. "And you spent money on this useless thing," she snorted. "Hands are faster and cleaner. People washed by hand all their lives and nothing fell apart." "It's convenient," Ashley replied briefly, closing the door. "Convenient when Lenya refills it." "I was thinking, Patrick," Gloria raised her voice so her son could hear from the living room, "your renovation is fresh, of course, but without a woman's touch, it feels soulless. The wallpaper is boring, the curtains, like in a hospital. You need to add some coziness, hang some pictures, place some doilies." Ashley tensed, anticipating where this conversation was heading. She turned and looked her mother-in-law directly in the eye. "We like it this way, Gloria. We love minimalism. Do you like it?" Gloria raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Sweetheart, what do you know about that? You're still young, haven't developed taste. I taught Patrick good taste since childhood. We went to museums, read the right books. He understands what real beauty is, don't you, son?" "Mom, come on," Patrick muttered awkwardly, appearing in the kitchen. "Ashley has good taste. I like everything." "You like it because you love your wife and don't want to offend her," Gloria snapped, patting his cheek. "But I, as your mother, am telling you, the apartment is empty, cold, like a hotel. It's uncomfortable to live in. Especially for a man." Ashley's inner monologue resembled a battle report. "First strike on my taste, deflected. Second, on my housekeeping skills. Third, a hint that I'm a bad wife. What's next?" She felt like a tightrope walker walking over an abyss. One wrong word, and she would plummet into the chasm of another scandal, from which she would emerge as the guilty party. Her father had remained silent the entire time. He sipped his tea, looking out the window, pretending not to hear the conversation. Ashley knew he understood everything. He simply didn't want to escalate the situation, didn't want his daughter to have problems because of him. His silent support was now more important to her than anything else. The evening was drawing to a close, and Ashley was eagerly waiting for her mother-in-law to finally leave. But Gloria seemed in no hurry. She made herself comfortable on the sofa, turned on the television, and began commenting on some series while giving Patrick instructions. "Sweetheart, bring me a blanket. It's a bit chilly. Patrick, make me some tea. Not the bagged kind, proper brewed tea." Ashley watched the scene, a sense of dread creeping over her. Her mother-in-law wasn't behaving like a guest who would soon leave, but like someone who had already firmly settled in. "Patrick, where do you keep your bed linen?" Gloria's question sounded through the quiet room like a thunderclap. Ashley, who was gathering empty cups from the table, froze. Patrick, sitting next to his mother on the sofa, also looked surprised. "Mom, why do you need it?" "It's late. I can call a taxi now." "What taxi, sweetheart?" The mother-in-law looked at him with genuine puzzlement. "I'm not visiting. I'm staying with you, for good." "Well, I mean until I help get everything in order here." Ashley felt the floor drop from under her. She slowly placed the cups on the table, afraid of dropping them. "In what sense?" she asked. "For good. Her voice sounded muffled and unfamiliar. Gloria gave her a condescending look, like one would give a slow-witted child. In the literal sense, dear. I've decided you won't manage without me. Patrick works, you work too. And your father, she nodded toward John. He needs supervision. So I thought, I'll live with you for a month or two, help organize the household, teach you how to manage things properly. I can see you have no experience at all. Ashley looked at Patrick. His face showed a mix of confusion, embarrassment, and fear of his mother, fear of his wife's reaction. He avoided her gaze, fidgeting with the edge of the sofa cushion. Mom, we didn't agree on this, he finally said. Agree on what? Gloria exclaimed, throwing her hands up. I only want what's best. I'm trying to help you, ungrateful. I thought you'd be glad. A mother offers help, and she didn't finish, but her pointed look toward Ashley made it clear who the you was. Feeling cold rage boil inside her, Ashley intervened. We really appreciate your concern, but Patrick and I are adults and can manage on our own. Manage? Her mother-in-law sneered. I've already seen how you manage, dust in the corners, under salted potatoes, your father abandoned to his fate. No, that won't do. Family is when everyone helps each other, and I, as the elder, take responsibility for order in this house. She stood, demonstratively straightening her shoulders, and headed toward the hallway closet. So, where's the linen? I'll make the bed in the small room. Patrick, help me dismantle the sofa there. The small room was Ashley's office, containing her desk with a computer, bookshelves with landscape design books, her drawings, her boards. It was her personal space, her creative workshop. This room is occupied, Ashley said firmly. It's my office. Office? Gloria turned, raising her eyebrows. Sweetheart, what offices in a 2-room apartment where 3.5 people live? Don't make me laugh. Move your papers. I'm not proud. I don't need much space. She unceremoniously opened the office door and turned on the light. Patrick, she called again. Come here. Help me. Patrick, pale and miserable, rose from the sofa and, without looking at his wife, went to obey his mother's command. Ashley stood in the middle of the living room, feeling like a stranger in her own home. Her husband had just betrayed her, allowing his mother to intrude into their life, their space, her personal world. Her inner monologue turned into a scream. How could he? Why didn't he stop her? Doesn't he understand this is the end? The end of our peace, our privacy, our family. She remembered their dreams when they bought this apartment. How they had planned that the small room would first become her office, and later, over time, a nursery. They had sat on the floor in the empty apartment, drinking champagne from plastic cups and imagining their future. And in that future, there was no place for Gloria, living with them under the same roof. John rolled up to her in his chair and gently touched her hand. Sweetheart, don't, he said quietly. Don't start a conflict. Dad, but this is my home, Ashley whispered, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. I know, but sometimes it's better to give in to keep the peace. What peace, Dad? The kind of peace where I live under my mother-in-law's orders, where my husband is afraid to say a word against his mother. That's not peace, that's surrender. From the office came the sounds of furniture being moved and Gloria's commanding voice giving orders. Ashley realized she had to act. She wiped her tears, straightened her shoulders, and decisively headed toward her now former office. She paused at the doorway. The scene before her was worse than she could have imagined. Patrick, her husband, was obediently moving her desk against the wall to make space for a folding sofa. Gloria was already removing her books and drawings from the shelves, carelessly piling them on the floor. "This junk should go out on the balcony," she told her son, pointing to a stack of Ashley's project folders. "It's just taking up space." At that moment, something inside Ashley finally broke. The patience she had built up over years snapped like an overstretched string. "Don't touch my things." Ashley's voice rang out, unexpectedly loud and sharp in the small room. Gloria and Patrick froze and turned around. Her face held an expression they had never seen before, cold, detached, and full of determination. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Her mother-in-law was the first to recover, slipping into her usual condescending tone. "I'm just tidying up, making some space." "You're not tidying up," Ashley said firmly, stepping closer and taking the folder with her latest project from her mother-in-law's hands. "You are invading my personal space and touching my work materials without permission. Put everything back, immediately." Gloria pressed her lips together. Her face flushed crimson. "How dare you talk to me like that? I'm your husband's mother. I'm older than you." "That doesn't give you the right to run my house and my office," Ashley replied calmly, looking her mother-in-law straight in the eyes. "Patrick," Gloria squealed, turning to her son. "Do you hear how she's talking to me? Do something, put her in her place." Patrick looked completely bewildered. He shifted his frightened gaze from his mother to his wife, clearly unsure whose side to take. "Ashley, what are you starting?" he muttered. "Mom was just trying to help." "Help?" Ashley bitterly smiled. "Help me lose my workspace. Help us turn our life into hell." "Patrick, that's not help, that's a territorial takeover, and I won't allow it." She turned to her mother-in-law. "Gloria, I'm asking you to leave. Today." Her mother-in-law gasped in outrage. "You're kicking me out? Me, your husband's own mother, from my son's house? This is not your son's house. It's our shared apartment, bought with a mortgage," Ashley corrected her. "And yes, I'm asking you to leave. We are not ready to live together." "Patrick," Gloria shouted again. "She's throwing me out. My heart can't take this at night." She theatrically clutched her chest and began breathing heavily. Patrick immediately rushed to her. "Mom, calm down. Sit. Here, have some water." "Ashley, are you insane? Do you see what you've done to her?" he exclaimed. I couldn't believe my ears. "It's not me. She's the one who pushed this situation to the extreme. I'm just protecting our boundaries," Ashley said firmly. "What boundaries?" Patrick moaned, fanning his mother with a magazine. "She's my mom. She can't be behind some imaginary boundaries." Ashley watched the scene, wanting to cry from helplessness and disappointment. Her husband, her support and protector, had once again chosen not her. He was ready to sacrifice their peace, their family, just to avoid upsetting Mommy. From the living room, John had come in at the noise. He stopped his chair in the doorway and silently cast a heavy gaze over everyone. "What's going on here?" His voice, though quiet, made everyone fall silent. "Dad, it's nothing," Ashley tried to smile. "We're just having a little argument." "John, your daughter is kicking me out of the house," Gloria immediately complained, shifting her attention to the new audience. "I came to help the young couple," and her father glanced at Patrick. "Son-in-law, is that true?" Patrick blushed deeply and lowered his eyes. "John, it's a misunderstanding. Ashley is just tired to move. I'm not tired," Ashley said firmly. "I just don't want your mother living with us." I had the right to expect that my husband would discuss this with me first, rather than present me with a fait accompli. John looked at Gloria. Gloria, were you really planning to live here? What's wrong with that? She replied defiantly. I'm a mother. I have the right to be close to my son. You do, but not at the expense of his own family, John cut in. The young couple should live separately. It's an unwritten law, but the most important one. Gloria snorted. Oh, don't start lecturing me on how to live. You raised a daughter who isn't afraid to speak her mind to her husband, and now you're giving advice too. Ashley saw the tension on her father's face. He struggled with his helplessness, his dependence on others. And now this woman was insulting him, taking advantage of his vulnerability. Enough! Ashley shouted, making even Patrick flinch. Don't you dare speak to my father like that. The conflict had reached its peak. The air in the room seemed to hum with tension. Everyone knew that words had been spoken from which there could be no return. Ashley felt cornered, but that very feeling gave her strength. She was no longer willing to give in. Patrick, she said, turning to her husband. You have to make a choice now. Either your mother packs her things and leaves, or I leave with my father. It was an ultimatum, risky, desperate, but the only possible solution in this situation. Patrick looked at her, horror flickering in his eyes. Choosing between his mother and his wife was like choosing between life and death. Ashley, don't do this, he whispered. Let's calm down, talk about it. We've already talked. I'm waiting for your decision. Seeing her son hesitate, Gloria decided to attack. So that's it, huh? She hissed, rising from her chair. Blackmailing my son, are you? You think he'll choose you, an intruder, over his own mother? He'd be lost without me. She approached Patrick and took him by the arm. Sonny, don't listen to her. She's just jealous of our love. Come on, I'll make you some mint tea, and you'll calm down. She led him out of the room, and Patrick, like an obedient calf, followed her, casting a helpless, apologetic glance at Ashley. For Ashley, everything became clear. He had made his choice. The following days turned into a Cold War. Gloria did not leave. She deliberately stayed, taking over Ashley's office and turning it into her citadel. From there, she waged a guerrilla war aimed at proving her indispensability and her daughter-in-law's utter uselessness. In the mornings, she got up earlier than everyone and prepared breakfast exclusively for Patrick, ignoring Ashley. His favorite tzatziki or omelets appeared on the table, while Ashley was left with yesterday's stale bread. Patrick, eat, darling, you need your strength, she cooed, offering him the best piece. And you, Ashley, can finish your leftover porridge. Don't let it go to waste. Ashley silently drank black coffee and left for work, feeling her mother-in-law's triumphant gaze on her back. Patrick pretended not to notice. He ate his mother's breakfasts, praised her cooking, and tried to avoid crossing paths with his wife as much as possible. He seemed to have fallen into a stupor, completely handing over control to his mother. Evenings were worse. Gloria took over the kitchen, preparing heavy, greasy dishes that Patrick loved and Ashley couldn't stand. The whole apartment reeked of fried onions and cheap sunflower oil. The mother-in-law slowly started to make herself at home. Embroidered pillows appeared on the living room sofa, and numerous jars of creams filled the bathroom, pushing aside Ashley's cosmetics. She even tried to reposition the paintings, but when Ashley caught her with a hammer in hand, she caused such a scene that Gloria backed off, though she nursed her resentment. It was especially hard on her father. Gloria treated him with deliberate contempt. She sighed loudly whenever she had to pass by his chair. She complained that his medications made the apartment smell like a pharmacy. She deliberately turned the TV volume up full blast when she knew he was resting. "John, could you please not roll over the carpet?" she said to him. "Your chair leaves marks." "Rolling on the parquet?" Ashley clenched her fists, but her father asked her not to intervene. "Don't, daughter, don't make it worse." "I'll bear it," he would say when they were alone. Ashley felt torn. On one hand, there was an important work project requiring her full concentration. The client was demanding, deadlines were tight, and any mistake could cost her reputation. On the other hand, there was the unbearable atmosphere at home, where she had to remain constantly on guard, protecting herself and her father from her mother-in-law's attacks. One evening, returning from work utterly exhausted after tough negotiations, Ashley came across the following scene. Gloria was sitting in the living room knitting, while John was trying to reach a book that had fallen from the shelf. He helplessly stretched out his hand but couldn't lift it. Her mother-in-law sat just a few steps away, pretending not to notice. "Gloria!" Ashley shouted, rushing to her father. "Don't you see he needs help?" Gloria slowly lowered her knitting. "What do you want me to do?" He didn't ask. "I thought it was some kind of exercise." "Good for the hands." Ashley picked up the book and handed it to her father. His hands were trembling. "Thank you, daughter," he said quietly. That evening, Ashley realized she could no longer keep tearing herself apart. She approached Patrick, who, as usual, was sitting buried in his phone. "Patrick, we need to talk. This can't continue. Your mother is tormenting my father." "Here we go again?" he muttered without looking up. "Mom, what's just? Just sitting and watching a helpless person unable to pick up a book. That's not just, Patrick, that's cruelty." "Well, maybe she didn't notice," he mumbled uncertainly. "Didn't notice?" Ashley raised her voice in irritation. She was sitting 2 meters away from him. "Patrick, open your eyes. Your mother is deliberately creating unbearable conditions for my father, hoping he'll want to leave, so I'll have to take him somewhere." Patrick finally put down his phone. "And what do you suggest? Kicking my mother out? I suggest you finally act like a man and head of the family, and explain to your mother that there are rules in this house. And one of them is respect for all family members, including my father." "I'll talk to her," he promised. But his voice held not a trace of confidence. If the conversation even happened, it brought no results. The next day, Gloria was even more sarcastic and nitpicky. She accidentally spilled water on Ashley's drawings lying on the table. "Oh, how clumsy of me," she said, not even trying to apologize. She hid the TV remote, and when John asked for it, she claimed she had no idea where it was. Ashley felt on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Her patience was running out. She knew that some kind of resolution, some climax, had to happen after which everything would change. And she was right. Friday was particularly tense. Ashley had a final project presentation scheduled with the client and the management of the Emerald City residential complex. Everything depended on this meeting: budget approval, the start of work, and her future career in the company. She left the house early in the morning, hastily drinking coffee and kissing her sleeping father. Patrick was still asleep, while Gloria clattered in the kitchen with pots and pans, showing with every gesture who was the real mistress of the house. "Good luck, daughter," her father whispered as she peeked into his room. "Break a leg." "To hell with it, Dad," Ashley smiled, adjusting his blanket. "I'll try to come back early." The meeting dragged on. The clients were meticulous, asking hundreds of questions and suggesting edits. Ashley held her ground confidently, defending every detail of her project. She felt like she was on a battlefield, but this battle was clear to her. There were rules and logic here, unlike at home. When she finally left the conference room, it was already 5 p.m. Her manager shook her hand. "Great job, Ashley." "They're thrilled." "Budget approved. We start Monday." Ashley felt an incredible relief and exhaustion. At the same time, she had managed it. Now she could finally exhale and go home, where another kind of war awaited her, without rules and without logic. She was riding in a taxi, watching the lights of Washington pass by, thinking that something needed to be done. The ultimatum hadn't worked. Neither had the conversations. Gloria had firmly latched onto their family and had no intention of backing down. Patrick was completely paralyzed by her will, which meant the decision would have to be made by Ashley herself, and it would most likely be painful. When the taxi pulled up to their house, Ashley noticed something strange. In the stairwell by their door stood her father's wheelchair. Next to it were 2 large bags of his belongings. Her heart dropped somewhere deep down. She jumped out of the car, paid the driver, and rushed to the entrance, feeling as if her legs weren't supporting her. Reaching her floor, she froze. These were indeed her father's things: clothes, books, chess set, a framed photo of her mother. Everything was piled in a heap next to his chair. The door to their apartment was slightly ajar. Ashley pushed it open and stepped inside. Patrick was standing in the hallway. He was without his jacket, wearing slippers, and looking at her with a frightened, hunted expression. "Ashley, I just got here." Gloria emerged from the living room. Her face was a mixture of triumph and irritation. "Ah, you showed up," she said through gritted teeth. "I decided to tidy things up a bit, made some space, because it was getting hard to breathe with all this clutter." Ashley glanced around the apartment. The living room now felt more spacious. In the place where her father's chair usually stood, there was now a ficus in a large pot, brought in by her mother-in-law. "Where's my father?" Ashley asked quietly. Her soft voice made Patrick shiver. "He's sitting in his room," Gloria waved dismissively. "I gave him a little stool, otherwise he just hangs out in the living room like a statue. People need to talk in private." She casually adjusted her copper-colored hair and added a phrase that drove the last nail into the coffin of their family life. "Honestly, I think your daddy has no place in an upscale apartment. He'd be better off in some retirement home, socializing with other old people. Young people live here, not caretakers." Patrick stood with his head down, silent. He had come, seen all this, and done nothing. Not a word in defense of his father, not a word against his mother. He just stood there, silent. Ashley slowly, as if in a dream, walked past them into her father's room. John was sitting on a small kitchen stool in the corner. Back straight, chin raised, like on parade. But Ashley could see how his hands trembled, clasped on his knees, and how his eyes shone with unspilled tears of humiliation. A retired colonel, a man who had survived 2 wars, commanded thousands of soldiers, was now humiliated, insulted, and shoved out of his own home like an unwanted object. Ashley knelt before him and took his cold hands in hers. "Dad, I'm sorry." "It's not your fault, daughter," his voice quivered. "It's me. I'm in your way." "Never say that," Ashley said firmly, looking him in the eye. "Do you hear me? Never." She stood up. Anger, cold and pure, gave her strength and clarity. She no longer felt pain or resentment, only icy determination. She knew exactly what she was going to do. Ashley left her father's room and closed the door behind her. In the living room, her husband and mother-in-law were waiting. Patrick still stood with his head sunk into his shoulders, and Gloria had seated herself in the armchair, challenging her daughter-in-law with a look, expecting tears, hysteria, and reproaches. She was ready to defend herself, attack, accuse, but Ashley remained silent. She walked to the window and stared for several seconds at the lights of the evening city and the park that would soon become her creation. The silence in the apartment was almost tangible. "Well, why are you silent?" Gloria couldn't hold it in. There was nothing to say. She understood who was the mistress of the house. Ashley slowly turned around. Her face was calm, almost serene. She first looked at Patrick, then shifted her gaze to her mother-in-law. "Yes, I understand," she replied softly. Now everything was finally clear. She took her phone out of her purse. "Are you going to complain to your daddy?" Her mother-in-law sneered. "He won't help you, the poor cripple." "No," Ashley shook her head as she dialed the number. "I'll call someone who can help." Her fingers didn't tremble. She pressed the call button and brought the phone to her ear. Patrick and Gloria looked at her, bewildered. Who could she be calling? Friends? The police? But her calmness was confusing. The voice on the other end answered almost immediately, "Roger, hello. This is Ashley, John Miller's daughter." Gloria tensed. The full name of Ashley's father, spoken with his military rank, sounded unusually weighty. "Yes, Ashley, I'm listening," came a low, confident male voice through the phone. "Did something happen to your father?" "He's fine," Ashley replied calmly, "but we have a problem here. A problem with the violation of a property owner's rights." Patrick raised his head in surprise. Gloria frowned, trying to understand what she was talking about. "Roger, my father, John, is a co-founder and therefore co-owner of our apartment. He contributed 100% of the initial down payment." "I have all the documents in my hands," Ashley said clearly, as if reading from an official document. Patrick stared at her wide-eyed. He hadn't known. He was sure his father had simply gifted them the money. The idea that his father-in-law had equal rights to the apartment had never crossed his mind. "Today, in my absence, my husband's mother." Ashley paused, looking directly at Gloria, "placed his personal belongings and wheelchair in the stairwell and is obstructing his free movement around the apartment. She is, in fact, attempting to evict him from his own home." Gloria's face slowly began to stretch, the color draining from her cheeks, leaving unpleasant pale patches. "What nonsense are you talking about?" she hissed. "What owner?" "I can send you scanned copies of the documents," Ashley continued, ignoring her. "And I have a witness, my husband, who saw everything and took no action." There was silence on the line for a few seconds. "Address?" Roger said shortly. Ashley gave the address. "I'll be there in an hour. Do nothing, don't talk to anyone. Just wait." "Thank you," Ashley said and hung up. She placed the phone on the table and took in her stunned relatives. Patrick looked at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. He had never seen his quiet, accommodating wife like this. Gloria seemed to have turned into a statue. Her face was frozen in a mask of disbelief and fear. What was that?" she finally managed to say. "Who did you call?" "An old colleague of my father's. He's now the head of a department in the bailiff service," Ashley explained calmly. "He's coming to restore my father's legal right to live in this apartment." "Bailiffs?" Patrick repeated, his voice trembling. "Why bailiffs?" We can't anymore, Patrick," Ashley cut him off. "You made your choice when you allowed your mother to humiliate my father. Now other people are stepping in." She sat down in the chair, the one that had just been vacated by her mother-in-law, and crossed her legs deliberately. For the first time in all this time, she felt in control. The emotional breakdown she had experienced when she saw her father humiliated had turned into cold, ringing determination. She was no longer a victim. She was a person defending her family and her territory. And she was ready to go all the way. The hour of waiting dragged on painfully. Gloria paced the living room like a caged tigress. Her self-confidence had evaporated, replaced by panic. She would rush at Patrick, then start yelling at Ashley, "Are you out of your mind? Calling bailiffs on your own mother? Do you want to disgrace our family in front of the whole building? You disgraced the family when you put a sick man's belongings in the stairwell," Ashley replied without leaving her chair. "Patrick, tell her." The mother-in-law grabbed her son's hand. "Tell your wife to cancel this circus. We could have worked it out." Patrick, pale as a sheet, tried to speak, but the words got stuck in his throat. He looked at Ashley with a pleading expression. "Ashley, maybe we really don't need to? Call, say we've resolved everything." "I haven't resolved anything," she snapped. "You decided when you stayed silent. Now let the people authorized by law handle it." Gloria began dragging John's things back into the apartment. She fussed, puffed, trying to shove the wheelchair into the narrow corridor. "See? I've put everything back," she yelled. "Everything's in place, no problems at all." Ashley watched this pathetic comedy in silence. She understood that it was no longer about the belongings. It was about principle, once and for all, setting boundaries and showing who had the right to speak here. She remembered her father as he had been before illness, strong, confident, and always just. He had taught her never to give up, never to back down in the face of difficulties. Being a first daughter, he used to say, is about honor and dignity. You can't buy or sell them. You can only preserve them or lose them. Today, she was fighting not only for his rights but also for his dignity, trampled by this domineering, cruel woman. At that moment, watching her panicking mother-in-law and helpless husband, Ashley finally understood their marriage was over. She could not live with a man who had betrayed her so easily, who had allowed the person closest to her to be humiliated. Even if he came to his senses now, even if he begged for forgiveness, the crack that had formed between them would never heal. Something inside her had died: love, trust, hope. All of it had crumbled to dust. She stood and approached Patrick. "After this is over, you will gather your things and leave with your mother." "Ashley, you can't," he stammered. "Where would I go?" "To the place where you belong. With your mom." Her voice was icy. "You're the perfect pair. She'll make you cheese pancakes, and you'll cater to her every whim. But I love you, no. Patrick, you love comfort, and I've stopped being comfortable for you." At that moment, the doorbell rang like a gong announcing the start of the final round. Ashley went to open it. On the doorstep stood two men in uniform and one in a strict civilian suit. It was Roger Jackson, tall, gray-haired, with a face seemingly carved from granite. "Hello, Ashley," he said formally. "We are here in response to your call." "Please, come in," she said, stepping aside. At that moment, John emerged from his room. He had changed into his dress uniform with medals. Back straight, gaze clear. He did not want to meet his fellow soldier as a humiliated victim. "Hello, Roger," he said, extending his hand. "Hello, John," Jackson replied, shaking it firmly, and in his stern eyes something warm flickered. "You don't look your best, Colonel." "You've looked better," the father smiled wryly. "But it's okay, we'll manage." The turning point had arrived. Ashley knew that justice would now prevail. Roger Jackson stepped into the living room, and the atmosphere in the apartment changed instantly. His presence, calm confidence, and the uniforms of the two accompanying officers were sobering. Gloria, who had been pacing the room, froze by the window, clutching the curtain. Patrick stood in the middle of the room, pale and bewildered. So, Jackson began, scanning everyone with a heavy gaze. I am Roger Jackson, head of a department in the bailiff service. We have arrived in response to a complaint filed by citizen Ashley Miller regarding the violation of property rights of citizen John Miller, he continued, pausing for everyone to grasp the statement. According to the records, this apartment is jointly owned by citizens in equal shares. John, do you confirm that you have been obstructed from using your property? John, sitting in his chair in his dress uniform, replied firmly, I confirm. My personal belongings and my means of mobility were placed in the stairwell. I was denied free access to the common areas of the apartment. That's not true. Gloria squealed. She made it all up. She pointed at Ashley. She wants to slander me, to throw me out of the house. Jackson didn't even turn his head toward her. He pulled several photographs from his folder. We have photo evidence, the wheelchair and personal belongings in the stairwell. The neighbors have already provided preliminary statements. Gloria froze, paling even more. Ms. Miller, Jackson looked at Ashley. What is your relationship to the property owner? I am his husband's mother, she stammered. So legally, no one, Jackson stated. On what grounds are you in this apartment, managing someone else's property? I am visiting my son. Guests don't throw out the host's things, the bailiff remarked coldly. Mr. Patrick, he addressed the son. You are the spouse of one of the owners. Were you a witness to unlawful actions against the second owner, John? Patrick swallowed. He looked at his mother, then at Ashley, then at Roger's stern face. I don't know, I just got here, don't lie, Ashley interjected. Did you see everything? Were you home when your mother was taking things out? Mom said it would be better this way. For order, Patrick muttered. Jackson shook his head. I see. Very well. Gloria, under the Civil Code, a property owner can demand the removal of any violations of their rights, even if these violations do not involve deprivation of possession. I am issuing you an official order. Immediately cease any actions that infringe on John Miller's rights and vacate the premises you are occupying within 24 hours. He handed her an official form. Gloria looked at the paper as if it were a venomous snake. Evict me? She whispered. You have no right. We do, Jackson said sharply. If this order is not complied with, we will be forced to take enforcement measures and initiate an administrative offense case. Simply put, if you are here tomorrow, you will be removed by the police. He turned to Patrick. As for you, young man, I would advise you to consider the criminal code, threats or violent actions against a person in connection with the performance of their official duties or public service. John is disabled, and the law is especially strict in such cases. But I didn't do anything. Patrick exclaimed fearfully. Exactly. Your inaction could be considered complicity. Ashley watched the scene with detached satisfaction. This was not just a legal procedure, it was an act of ultimate justice. She saw Gloria's world, built on manipulation and impunity, crumble. She saw her husband finally face the consequences of his cowardice. I'll pack my things now, Gloria muttered, retreating toward the door. You have 24 hours, Jackson reminded her. He approached John. John, if there are any more problems, call me any time. Thank you, Roger. His father shook his hand firmly. You didn't let me down. We don't abandon our own, Jackson replied curtly. He nodded to Ashley and, after giving final instructions to the officer, headed for the exit. When the door closed behind the bailiffs, the apartment was enveloped in deafening silence. The silence didn't last long. It was shattered by a piercing, theatrical scream. Gloria, having run to her temporary refuge, Ashley's office, collapsed onto the couch and began to cry. These were not quiet tears of hurt but loud, performative sobs intended for a single audience, her son. "They want to put your own mother in jail," she read aloud. "For what? For wanting order in the house? For caring about you? Patrick, honey, what is happening?" Patrick rushed to her, completely lost. He rubbed her back, brought her a glass of water, muttering some incoherent words of comfort. "Mom, calm down, no one's going to put you in jail. It's just a formality." Ashley and John remained in the living room. The father closed his eyes wearily. Ashley approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Dad. Now everything will be okay." "I know, daughter." He opened his eyes and looked at her with boundless love and pride. "You're a true fighter. Just like me." From the other room came Gloria's sobs and Patrick's consoling words. After some time, he emerged. His face was pale and worn. He stopped at the threshold, hesitant to come closer. "Ashley," he began, his voice full of desperate pleading, "we need to talk. I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know John was a co-owner. I thought he just gave us $3 million, Ashley finished for him. "Patrick, even if he hadn't been the owner, does that change anything? Does that cancel the fact that you and your mother humiliated a helpless man, that you threw his things out of a house where he was a guest?" "I was wrong," he lowered his head. "I panicked. Mom pressured me so much. She always pressures you, Patrick, and you always give in. That's the whole problem." From the room came Gloria's voice again. "Patrick, where are you? I feel bad. Call an ambulance." Patrick flinched and shot Ashley a frightened glance. "Go," she said calmly. "Mom needs your help." He nodded gratefully and disappeared through the door. Ashley walked over to the window. The evening city glittered with lights. Life went on, but her own life had just taken a sharp turn. Half an hour later, Patrick reappeared in the living room. "I called a taxi for Mom," he reported. "She'll go home now and pick up her things tomorrow." "Good," Ashley nodded. "She's very upset. She said she would never set foot in this house again." "That's probably for the best." Patrick came very close to her. "Ashley, forgive me. I ruined everything. I was blind. I was a coward, but I love you. Give me one more chance. I'll fix everything. I'll talk to Mom." "It's too late, Patrick," Ashley interrupted gently. "You've already said everything and done everything. Or rather, said nothing and did nothing when it was needed. But I can change. I'll prove it to you. I don't want to wait for you to change. I don't want to spend my life fighting your mother for your attention. I want to live in peace. I'm filing for divorce." He looked at her, tears welling in his eyes. "You want to ruin everything over one day, over one argument." "It wasn't one day, Patrick. It was years. Today, it just came to light. Today, I saw what you are capable of, and what you are not." Gloria, now dressed with a bag in hand, appeared in the doorway. She shot Ashley a fiery, condemning glance. "Come on, son. She doesn't need you or your love. She only wants the apartment." "That's my apartment too, Mom," John said unexpectedly firmly from his corner. "It belongs to my daughter too, and we will decide who lives in it." Gloria snorted, grabbed Patrick by the arm, and dragged him toward the exit. At the door, Patrick turned back. His gaze was full of pain and despair, but he left. He left with his mother, leaving Ashley and her father in their empty but finally free apartment. The conflict was resolved. Gloria suffered a crushing defeat. Her power, her manipulations, her authority, all had collapsed. Everything fell apart in one evening. The resolution came, bringing with it a bitter but necessary sense of relief. The worst was behind them. 3 months passed. Outside, the first timid snowflake swirled, covering the city with a white blanket. Ashley sat at her desk, making the final edits to the park project. Her office was hers again, a quiet, cozy space smelling of coffee and wood. Books and folders were neatly arranged on the shelves. Sketches and boards hung on the walls. Nothing reminded her of Gloria's brief but destructive intrusion. The divorce was finalized quickly. Patrick didn't argue or resist. They sold the car purchased during the marriage and split the money. The apartment, as decided, remained with Ashley and her father. Patrick moved into a rented apartment, rumored to be not far from his mother. He called only once a day, when picking up his last belongings, muttering something about being wrong and missing her. Ashley listened silently and hung up. She didn't want to return to the past. John settled into his chair in the room. Since that fateful evening, he seemed to have come alive again. Confidence had returned to him. The firm, commanding gleam was back in his eyes. He read a lot, started physical therapy exercises, and even tried cooking, turning the kitchen into a field for culinary experiments. "Back to work again, daughter?" he asked, approaching the desk. "Just putting the finishing touches, Dad," Ashley smiled, saving the document. "Final submission is tomorrow." "I'm proud of you," he said simply. Ashley approached and hugged him. "I'm proud of you too, Dad." They often sat like that in the evenings, drinking tea and talking, or simply sitting in silence, looking out the window. Their little world, their fortress, which they had defended together. Ashley no longer felt alone. She had her father, her beloved work, and plans for the future. Sometimes she thought of Patrick, not with resentment or anger, but with a quiet sadness. She understood that he wasn't a bad person. He was simply weak, broken by a domineering mother, unable to grow up. Perhaps one day he would break free from her influence, but that would be his story, his struggle. Her struggle was over. She had won. The next day, Ashley brilliantly defended her project. The management was thrilled. She was offered to head a new department. In the evening, returning home, she bought a cake and a bottle of fine champagne. "We have a celebration today, Commander," she announced at the door. "I got promoted." "I never doubted it," her father smiled. They sat at the table in their cozy kitchen, drinking champagne and eating cake. Snow fell outside. For the first time in a long while, Ashley felt completely happy. She had endured humiliation and betrayal but emerged stronger from those trials. She had not only regained her home but also herself, a strong, independent woman who knew her worth and could protect her boundaries. Life went on, and she was ready for the new chapters she would write, on her own terms.